Let's jump into this. We've been talking about Diddy for a while. There's a verdict now. Everybody was waiting for the verdict. It's here, right?
Split verdict, right.
Okay. But let's go back to where this all started. A stark, ugly, dark video of Diddy dragging Cassie Ventura across the hallway in the hotel, beating her, kicking her, dragging her by the hair or the hoodie across the floor. Clear domestic violence, abuse, whatever you want to call it. He really turned off the world audience to himself. Everybody's like, this is a really bad guy. Look at what he's doing. It's right in front of our eyes. We have a verdict now. The highest crime he was charged with, not guilty. The next level crime, not guilty. The lowest charges brought against him, alleging prostitution, he was guilty of that. I know a lot of people that are pretty upset. They're saying things like, this is unjust, it's unfair, rich people always get the verdicts they want. He had a great legal team. He bought his way out of a life sentence potentially. Let's explain this to people, RJ. Do you think justice was served in this case? Did we get the correct result, or is this a miscarriage of justice?
Well, we'd have to go by each count and explain how the jury came to the conclusion.
But what's your big picture thought? And we're going to dive into all of them, all the counts. Do you think it's fair what happened, or are you upset with the verdict?
I'm not one to judge fair. Fair is up to the jury based on the evidence and the totality of the circumstances. That's why we have a jury system.
Do you think we got to justice?
Otherwise, what you're asking is to try him in public opinion.
No.
I'm not in that court.
You're a legal expert. You've now watched 6 counts be brought against him, 4 not guilty and 2 guilty. Is it a correct result?
For the RICO, I think it is, because if you watch our prior podcasts, I said RICO is basically trying to get somebody really higher up in a corrupt organization, like a mafia organization. Mm-hmm. So it was a big reach. Even though they did that with R. Kelly, they got him for RICO for different circumstances. There were children in that situation. So
this is the toughest charges he was facing, the racketeering, influencing, corruption, organization.
Basically, his whole Bad Boy Entertainment was all just a fluke. It was based on soliciting prostitution and drugs. That's a high hurdle to do when you use beyond the reasonable doubt.
So that's the government saying, hey, man, you're not a record label. You're not really a musical artist on the face of it. You are a racketeering organization similar to the mafia under John Gotti.
Yeah, and it's my belief that they did that is because they try to backdoor all the bad deeds where the statute of limitations ran out, like on the Intercontinental Hotel, Cassie Ventura situation. The domestic violence statute ran out, but by putting the RICO charge, you could backdoor it through what's called a predicate act. Kind of clever for the prosecution, but Mark Agnifico, the defense attorney, said it's overreaching. It's a bad exaggeration, and the jury basically agreed.
Seemed to be the correct hunch. And yeah, it might have been clever, but it didn't work. They didn't get him on it.
I think they overtried him on that one.
Okay. And then a lot of people are wondering, what is this statute of limitations? Why would we even have that? Why put a time clock on where a poor female victim like Cassie Ventura can bring her case? So before we get into all that, can you give us a little word from our first ever sponsor, YMPK Law Firm? Let us know what you think about that.
Yeah, YMPK are a bunch of great guys. Mike over there, who's one of the lead attorneys, will answer all your questions. When you call YMPK day or night, they'll be there for you. They'll give you legal advice as far as what you can and can't do. And the areas of practice are basically personal injury. They do truck accidents, uninsured motorist. If you have any kind of slip and fall or injury, they'll tell you on the phone. They'll whether or not you have a good chance of recovery. And it'll all be free consultation at that point, because if you mention American Crime Podcast, they'll give you the red carpet treatment. They also do other areas of laws, such as criminal offense, like myself. And so there's different levels of criminal offense, and all of the individuals and associates at YMPK have extensive experience in criminal offense. I've known them personally. I've known Hike, Mike. And if you call any of these individuals 24 hours a day, they will get back to you quickly, because sometimes, when you're in trouble, you need to find out what your rights are, and who best to call than a law firm like YMPK.
Awesome. Thank you, YMPK. You are the first sponsor of the American Crime Podcast. We greatly appreciate you. Night or day, call YMPK. I'm going to put the link in the description. So check it out, everybody. You support us if you support them. And here's a few seconds of a disclaimer we got to put up because we're not technically supposed to personally recommend legal services, right? There's laws.
It's not a personal endorsement, so here are the rules.
Yeah. So check out this disclaimer, read it, and pause it if you have to so you get all the details. Let's jump right back into this, okay? Diddy verdict. We saw him drag Cassie by the hair, beat her, abuse her, clear domestic violence before all our eyes, yet no domestic violence charges ever brought. The reason is the SOL ran out. The statute of limitations on that crime ran out. Why the heck do we even have statute of limitations?
Well, you have to ask, why do we have statute of limitations for certain crimes? Sometimes there are no statute of limitations, such as murder. Murder, you could hunt and get the suspect within a lifetime.
Is that true? Is that every state, every federal level? There's just no SOL on any murder charge.
You can't kill somebody and then wait it out. There are laws against killing people.
I could see why, because the victim in that case is gone.
Right.
They're dead.
Right.
So the time clock is to try to put some procedural pressure on the victim to bring the case while it's fresh. Speak your facts while they're fresh in your memory, while the paper trail is clean and fresh. Don't let 20 years go by and then say this person abused me, right?
In essence. But in California, we've undone a lot of statute of limitations crimes relating to sexual violence. We used to have certain statutes because at the time, and there still are in some exceptions, I'm not going to go through each and every one, but the premise is that we want people's memories to be fresh. Think about it. If you're being charged with a crime, you want your percipient witness to identify you properly, able to recollect, observe, recall the events that happened. Additionally, there's a public policy issue. The public policy is you don't want to get arrested 30 years later, for something that you may or may not have done, because it's a cooling or a chilling effect upon our right to be free. What does that mean? I don't want to walk the street and somebody just grabs me and says, "Hey, by the way, 42 years ago you did this."
You don't want to be Brent Kavanaugh? Poor Supreme Court justice.
They might do that in Russia or communist countries, but we don't do that in America. We give every so-called victim, a right to bring the charges within a reasonable period of time.
Right. And I think for domestic violence, it's essentially something like 3 years, 5 years, generally. I just reviewed a few of the state statutes. I know it's not a decade, and it's not as short as a year. So it's somewhere in there, which the law deems somewhat of a reasonable time frame to say, hey, victims, you're going to have to speak up within this window, right? While it's fresh in your mind, while the witnesses are still around, while the paper trail is clear, do not wait decades and then try to bring a claim.
That's right. I mean, it's 5 years from the date of the incident on that charge, but there are certain other sexual charges, rape, forcible rape, things like that are no longer have that protection.
So do they have longer statutes?
Yes. And for rape,
or just no statute of limitation at all?
For rape, it would be 10 years, but there are other statutes that have a tolling effect. A tolling effect means that it freezes until the discovery of the event. So sometimes in certain cases, things don't come to fruition, and we'll leave it at that.
And it's like the statute of limitations, that time clock begins running from when the victim is aware that there's been a crime committed against them. It's not like 8 years can go by. They don't even know they've been defrauded, and then they find out, and it's like, oops, sorry, too late. No. It's pretty fair because it starts ticking from when the victim has subjective knowledge that they've been defrauded, raped, criminally violated in any way, abused domestically, whatever it is. Cassie Ventura knew she was being domestically abused. She knew she was the victim of horrible sexual violence. I don't know about sexual violence, but violence like battery. She knew. So the law is saying, hey, Cassie, you got to speak up within a certain window. You cannot wait as long as you did, right?
Yes, but then again, you'll hear experts. I believe her name was Dawn Hughes, who was part of the testimony. She provided blind testimony, which means just her thoughts about why domestic partners don't do that. And the obvious, you don't want to ruin the harmony of the family, or the potential of the relationship. There's denial and so forth.
They're afraid of even worse blowback, like maybe this guy will kill me if I go complain.
Right, but that's why it's mandatory in the state of California that if somebody does call the police on you and there is a reasonable suspicion that a crime is committed, the police have a duty to arrest the suspect, whether it's the male or the female.
Okay.
So if they see a red mark on the face and they ask, "Ma'am, what happened to your face?" and she's crying and she says nothing, but there was reports of beating from neighbors, they're probably going to arrest that person.
Who commits more domestic violence, men or women?
Typically men.
Yeah. And I would have thought that too, but recently I've been watching all these police body cam videos, and I was kind of horrified how often it was the woman who was abusing the man. It was shocking to me to see that.
Well, it's hard to count because the data shows that most men won't call the police as quickly as a woman would call against the male.
Right.
I've had many mutual domestic violence clients come in where the wife called on the police. And she said, to be truthful, this is the first time he's ever hit me. I'm the one that always smacks him.
Bad move.
So
She confessed, essentially.
But the thing is, I asked the counterpart. I said, "Why didn't you call the police on your wife?" And I just didn't want to, ruin the marriage. I did say some things that were hurtful.
Right.
There's always something about the male that is more resistant, I want to say.
Yeah, you don't want to seem like a wuss and call the cops and be like, "My wife's beating me."
You said that, not me.
I'm saying that. I mean, there's probably a little bit of a bias there for sure.
Perhaps.
Guys don't want to seem like they're being
Well,
abused.
there's a legal bias also. Tell me why the bail is lower on domestic violence for females than males.
The bail, if it's a female offender, the bail is lower.
Yeah, it's much lower.
Maybe there's just a presumption that weighs more in the favor of the female because of physical strength and diminutive body size.
Perhaps
and stuff like
less
that.
chances of domestic or violence upon the community. And
Yeah.
no fear that somebody else is going to get injured. Isolated incident based on a domestic relationship and so forth.
I think so.
But the reason why the reason why they found him not guilty of the sexual coercion charge, okay, the force, she said she was in a trance that she couldn't get out of the situation, is because there is too much to show the opposite. There was inconsistent testimony that she loved him and she did these freakoffs, voluntarily.
Yeah, the jury was shown videos of the freak-offs in which Cassie seemed like she was very voluntarily just taking part in these, helping to organize.
And it seemed like a big rubbing oil situation. It didn't seem as pornographic as many tend to think. So I didn't think it rose to the level, like I said, if you had a cup, do you have 80% of the cup filled with water? I don't think they found that to be true.
Right.
It was 80% of, guilt water inside the cup.
Right.
They thought, look, you could have left, you were, and again, I'm not making an excuse and I'm not on any side. I'm just explaining the way one of the jurors explained, the alternate jurors, it didn't reach the level of beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
Because even with Jane, who was after the fact, the last girlfriend, allegedly still doing the freak-offs at the time of the arrest, if you could believe that. At least that's what she said. She also had what I call lover's remorse. She was upset. She had regret about the things that she did. Perhaps she was embarrassed. All legitimate and completely understandable. But was it criminal? And
Right.
and that's what I think the jury didn't really have the burden rise to that level.
Right. Should we go charge by charge? I mean, you said it before we started. This guy dodged a couple big bullets, right? He dodged the RICO bullet coming at him. That could have put him away forever. He dodged the sex trafficking, essentially. He dodged that. They nailed him on trafficking with intent to prostitute, some kind of a prostitution-related charge. So let's start at the top.
Yeah, I was looking for the chart. Now I can't find it. Can you give me a second?
Yeah.
We're going to have to edit this out.
No, we could. Well, I'll pop the chart up in there. You have all the different charges.
And I can't.
Let's start with the worst charges brought against him. And how did Diddy dodge that bullet? RICO. Remember Dave Chappelle's joke. I say this every time we talk about Diddy. He said something about they got this guy in a RICO case by himself. That shouldn't happen. You got to prove a conspiracy of individuals.
Well, you could have an unindicted co-conspirator, which means there are other conspirators like Kareem Karan. she was named all over that trial.
She was part of Bad Boy Records.
Yeah, Bad Boy Records. So she wasn't charged. You don't need to have more than one conspirator to charge conspiracy. You could have an unindicted conspirator. They come forward and they say, look, Diddy made me do this. Diddy made me do that. But the RICO charge was really heavy.
It was a stretch.
It was a big stretch. And personally, I don't like the federal government over weaponizing the law. And, there's something called the letter of the law and there's something called the spirit of the law. Are there laws out there that you could go and attack every U.S. citizen? What's that saying? Show me the person and I'll show you the crime.
Yeah, this is lawfare. We got to avoid lawfare.
That's lawfare.
We got to avoid it. It's bad for our society. It's bad for our country.
There should have been a special meeting, in my opinion, which I don't think this exists at the prosecutor's office. If you have a charge like this, I think there should be a special prosecutor or another unit that decides whether the first unit judged correctly in assessing these charges.
We could bring like an Ayatollah, put him on top of it all as a morality judge and just be like, yes or no. Should we do that?
Not a morality judge, but just a second fresh pair of eyes to take a look and say, I think you're going a little overboard here. Do we really want to send this message? Even if we could convict him of this charge, RICO. There's a saying, a good prosecutor could convict a jury that somebody's guilty. A great prosecutor could convict an innocent person of the charges of the crimes that they brought before them.
Which is scary, right? You never want to be on the receiving end of lawfare like that.
Lawfare is very hard. If somebody, that is a saying, if they want to get you, they'll get you.
Right.
I'm sure right now, if you sift through all of my taxes and rip it apart, you'll say, what about this deduction, Mr. Manuelian? Oh, you shouldn't have put that in there. And it's been 10 years and technically now you committed a crime.
Right.
I mean, give me a break. But I will tell you that that was remarkable from my legal eyes to see.
Right. I don't know.
It just seems to me over aggressiveness regarding the prosecution. I told you in this podcast, I didn't think he was going to win. I said, you asked me which charges he's going to lose for sure. I said, if I were to bet anything, it's the prostitution charges, which is
the lowest of the three categories of charges.
Automatically, if you have like a phone call, I told you the last podcast, if you call an escort from Vegas to come to your house in Los Angeles to have sexual intercourse, you just committed a violation of the Mann Act, which is basically using sex to transport interstate commerce. Even if it's an email, by the way, you're hot, come over, I want to do things to you. If they go from Vegas to Los Angeles, they could use the email support to show that you contacted interstate commerce. Like I told you, there's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. Right. Should they do that is different than can they do that?
Right. And absolutely. And just to put a little bow on this RICO charge, which we both feel were overzealous, to say the least, by the prosecution, you could look at any record label, just randomly throw a rock and hit a musical artist right here in LA. There's going to be a little bit of drug use and partying involved in their lifestyle for 90% of them. They're going to have get-togethers. There's going to be some facilitators like road managers and roadies and groupies who help them secure certain substances. So there's some conversations with other people to secure some drugs and to have a good time. This is like almost every musical team. Imagine bringing RICO charges against every one of these people and creating co-conspirators and saying this entire thing is really a criminal mafia-like organization to transport drugs or to secure drugs. Now, you did correct me on this before and say, well, no, we need those underlying bad acts to be of a specific nature. They have to be a little more than just drug use, right? You brought up arson one time was on the list.
That's for RICO predicates.
For RICO, the predicates, these underlying bad acts that'll help you bootstrap up to a RICO charge, right? So I don't want to overstep. I want to make sure I clarify there are some guardrails against these RICO charges. It can't really just be for getting marijuana, I would assume.
Right. They're the predicate acts that are spelled out in the statutes, and they say what those laws are.
I'm assuming murder's on there.
Kidnapping, rape,
really bad
criminal
stuff.
threats.
Okay.
Typically violent behavior.
And the problem for Diddy is he kind of may have committed at least one of those.
Of course.
There was an arson charge. Yes. There was a bunch of threat charges.
They didn't prove the Kid Cudi blowing up his 9/11.
They tried. tried?
They tried through, what's her name? I forgot it.
There was a witness who rode with him in the car.
Yeah, Capricorn called Clark.
Yes.
But she was all over the place because she had text messages saying she loved him or something at the end, or not, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, or recorded a happy birthday video.
Something happened where her behavior was inconsistent.
So the jury didn't buy it.
As soon as you're inconsistent, right? If I'm telling you a story and there's one itsy bitsy inconsistency, that's enough for the jurors to say, listen, you may be telling me the truth, but I don't feel comfortable pushing that red button of guilt.
Right.
And that's what this jury did. I don't think they thought that it wasn't possible that Sean Combs did all that. Did it rise to the level of reasonable doubt? That's the key.
Beyond
Crime.
a reasonable doubt.
Beyond a reasonable doubt. In other words, did I have a doubt? I think on the count number 2, the hang-up was an alternate juror said there was a jury instruction that said that Sean Combs needed an intent to sex traffic by force, fraud, or coercion. The intent. That intent, as I told you, could be negated by drug use. I had a terrible case, where my client tried to kill a little baby because the baby was crying too much and the dad was on drugs and lost it and almost choked the baby to death. He was charged with attempted murder. Okay. I got a not guilty on it because I showed that he had enough alcohol in the system not to negate intent. The same thing here. The jury said with Sean Combs, I'm not sure if he really understood what was going on. The guy was on drugs the whole time.
Somewhat of a sober intent.
Part of that, and there were other reasons why they didn't think that level was met. I know there were some newscasters that said that there was jury nullification because clearly he dragged Jesse Ventura. You see that. Clearly she was scared. But the intent, did he intend to do all that? If you're under the influence of drugs, and he said before in the Instagram video, the famous one, he said, I was under drugs. I didn't know what I was doing. I seek God's mercy and all that. He's distancing himself just the way Mark Agnifico has told the jury that this is Sean Combs on drugs. It's not who he is. And then he showed the text messages when he was off drugs, what it was like, that he was very attentive to them. He bought them things. He was jokey. He basically said that it changes his character. So by that alone, in my opinion, if they believe that the drugs caused him to do these things without really knowing what was happening, and I know a lot of the internet's going to go crazy. How would you not know? He's on drugs, he's watching, he's doing things to himself. But again, the jury has to say beyond a reasonable doubt. Not that it's possible. It's totally possible, and obviously he did it. But the question is, could we say that he knew for sure, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he wanted to put her in a coercive situation, do it by force? In his mind, was he actually forcing her? It's hard to dig deep into specific intent crimes. If you look at specific intent, I always tell a person it's better to get charged with attempted murder than a general intent crime where it's, if you did it, like you just punch him in the chest, it's actually easier to prove specific intent. You could get the person to testify, I didn't intend to do that. In fact, not to plug myself in, as you know, I just represented a huge, large Los Angeles Dodger Stadium case.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And where
that was all over the news, yeah.
Where my client punched somebody on the floor. It went to his intent. What was he trying to do? I proved the intent wasn't to hit him, it's to defend his wife and his family and friends. So I negated that intent. You can negate it by testimony. You can negate it by alcohol intoxication through testimony or medical science. You could get medical experts to say he was so inebriated that he couldn't have formulated the specific intent necessary under the law to commit the act.
Okay. No, fair. Let's wrap up with
That's
top
number 2.
Well, let's wrap up number 1, which is RICO.
RICO's gone.
They found him not guilty.
Number 2,
but
guilty.
But hold on. Do we know the breakdown of the jury in finding him not guilty for RICO? Does it mean all 12?
All 12. Yes.
Could it have been 10?
No, because that's a hung jury. And it's interesting because it was hung before they came. The judge gave an Allen charge, which meant go back and just continue to do it.
Yeah, I saw that.
So they convinced somebody, 2 people, like there may have been a jury instruction issue.
To flip to not guilty.
To flip to not guilty, right. Yeah. There were holdouts that were saying that they were guilty. So if they were truly hung, I'm sure this prosecution would have went after him again. But he dodged a bullet. Okay, so not guilty in count 1.
So 12 people said no RICO violation.
No RICO violation.
Okay, count 2.
No sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion.
Let's talk about that one. How many, again, 12 jurors said no sex trafficking.
You need a unanimous jury, meaning all 12 juries in this beautiful country of ours and our great Constitution requires 12 individuals to unanimously agree or disagree.
It's incredible. It's part of our constitutional framework that protects all of us as citizens. It's part of the due process umbrella of due process rights that we all enjoy.
That's right.
Well, you and I just had the pleasure of sitting halfway across the world in another country and having dinner. That was fun. Every time I come back here, I kiss the ground, and I'm so blessed to be back here. And even if somebody wants to bring evil lawfare charges against me or you, at least we know here we have these protections under the Constitution as citizens of the U.S. We all enjoy these.
Yes.
We should never take them for granted, and we should never allow them to slip an inch away.
I don't think you truly realize that until you travel and go to other countries where, they have an unjust system and they can arrest you on almost nothing and convict you on nothing. And
we've got a lot of protections here.
Yes.
So how is it that they didn't get that second category of charges, that trafficking for sex? How did that not stick?
Because the sex trafficking by force, my understanding, required an intent, a specific intent, which they couldn't conclude whether he understood what was happening as far as intending to force.
Would that be alleging that he was trafficking Cassie Ventura by force or the other sex workers involved?
Well, clearly he was forcing her to do things. The question is, was he sex trafficking her? And the other problems are, she said that she loved the freakoffs, that she set him up, that she got the candles ready. So it wasn't just the intent. It was a totality of different things that were going on.
Like, was she forced?
Regarding her inconsistent behavior.
Right.
And Dawn Hughes, I believe that's her name, the expert, tried to explain that she was mentally trapped, but I don't think I would push that guilty button so fast.
Right. The jurors are facing this unbelievably high threshold of beyond a reasonable doubt. Hey, juror, Mr. Juror, Mrs. Juror, is there any doubt in your mind that he forced her to perform these acts? Is there any doubt? Like maybe when she says she loves him and she misses him and
or setting up the freakoffs
helps organize the event itself. Does that create a little bit of doubt in your mind? Because if it does, you're not getting past that threshold of beyond a reasonable doubt.
And I'll give the defense attorney a lot of credit. He built a love story, sort of speak, and he actually started getting choked up when he was reading text messages between them, and he explained they loved each other. They had a swingers,
I think they did.
They had a swingers lifestyle. You and I may not do that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We may be conservative traditionalists that like to be fathers and raise children, but you know what? That's their lifestyle. And sometimes when you do drugs, you fight. Sometimes when you do drugs, one person may force the other person to have sex. It doesn't mean that you're trafficking them, even though you're inviting them over and then forcing them to do that, not under the letter of the law. So he convinced the jury that you could hang them, you could throw away the key. Throw away the charges based on the fact that she was inconsistently testifying to what her behavior was. Going to the freakoffs, and that could be a not guilty. The other not guilty could be he didn't know what he was doing. He was on drugs, which I believe is what one of the jurors said when he came out. He didn't know whether or not he formulated that intent.
Right, like
so that's count two.
Can I like hypothetically? Let me throw a fact pattern at you that did not exist here. But let's say Cassie, after one of these freakoffs, ran to LAX and was about to get on a plane and go away, and Diddy showed up and canceled her flight or voided her ticket. Or left a voicemail saying, you get on that plane and leave, and you will never record music in this town again. Something like that. Some kind of way of roping her back into the scenario. If something like that existed, maybe, hypothetically here, would that have given the juries a little bit more of an opportunity to find him guilty of that forcible trafficking? Something, but we didn't see anything like that.
No, we didn't. I can't speculate as to what 12 other people would think. And if you're asking me.
Or if he literally dragged her back by her hair the way he did in that terrible, horrendous video of the hotel lobby. Something that says, wow, he really did forcibly traffic her. As opposed to now what the jury seems to think, 12 of them, is she seems to be involved like voluntarily.
And your question, is it posed to this jury or another jury?
This jury.
Because another... I don't know, but another jury could decide maybe yes. If you keep doing these trials over and over, every jury is going to give you a different response because you have different demographics. You have, Now it could be 8-4 African American into white. Next time it could be 11 white to 1 African American.
I mean, it shouldn't.
The
matter.
analytics change.
It shouldn't matter. And
it matters in a sense because we bring our own experiences culturally, education-wise. So of course the math changes every time.
Right. But do you really see a world in which, under the same exact facts, those 12 no's would have turned to 12 yeses, guilty?
It's happened in Los Angeles.
Under the same, with no new facts being unearthed, no new evidence.
Well, no, of course, there's always going to be something different.
Change,
of course. Of course.
Yeah. Otherwise, the system
we're not trying
sucks.
it in a microcosm.
Otherwise, it's a lottery.
Right. Well, all I'm saying, though, it does make a difference. For example, we've talked about this. If you said, RJ, I'm sorry to say this, I'm not trying to imply anything. But RJ, where would you love to try all your trials? Compton.
Yeah.
Take me to Compton.
Yes.
I'll plant a flag in Compton. I'll do trials all day long. I've never lost a case in Compton.
Right. We know that.
I'll repeat. I never lost a case in Compton.
As a criminal defense attorney.
As a criminal defense attorney. Right. And the reason is because it's very easy.
Suspicion of the law.
To make the community suspicious of officers because not all officers are perfect in Compton.
Right.
And that's an understatement to say the least. And
the historical context.
And when I bring it out and I show them these things, that's reasonable doubt. Is it possible this police officer planted the raw cocaine in my client's car because he beat him up before he found out that he wasn't a crack dealer? So he planted the evidence to cover his butt.
100%.
By the way, I just recited facts that I've won in a trial in Compton that we made millions of dollars after.
Right.
I'm not making these things up.
Right. Well, to me, it echoes of the very famous O.J. Simpson trial, where essentially that was found not guilty based on suspicion of police wrongdoing and planting evidence.
Right. So he was found not guilty in criminal court and found guilty in civil court.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Because the burden of proof was so high, 80%, 90% in the criminal trial, and they were scratching their heads with the bloody glove that may or may not have been planted, a racist police officer. It goes on and on and on.
Yep.
So, but in civil court, it's just a preponderance of the evidence. What does that mean? It means as long as you're able to prove 51 to 49%, just 2% more,
a little above 50.
a little bit more, you win.
So instead of this beyond a reasonable doubt, the
51%.
threshold comes right down to here above the 51-yard line.
Almost a flip
51-yard
of a coin.
line.
It's almost a flip of a coin.
Well, 1 yard past.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's much easier. So it's found not guilty. Getting back to Sean, not guilty on count 2, which is the sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Number 3,
the lowest level charges brought.
Obvious. It's as to transportation to engage in prostitution. He brought a prostitute in. I don't know what their names were. One was called a Punisher. The other one was called I don't know what. And so
Bob, Nancy.
So count 3, obviously, and that's why, it was a win in his mind. That's why when he went back to jail, he got a standing ovation from the entire Metropolitan Detention Center. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
He got a standing, everybody was whistling because he beat the system. They felt like, wow, we have some hope. Like we could jab the system if we really wanted to.
Right.
Because 95%, 99% of trials in federal court, I told you this, are found guilty on almost all the charges. The fact that he beat RICO was one of the biggest. It was a life charge. The fact that he sex trafficking by force, he was looking 20 years or something like that. He dodged all maximum time, life, 20 years.
Right.
Now he's looking at a maximum of 10 years as to each prostitution count. I doubt Mr. Subramanian, Judge Subramanian, is going to throw the book at him. He's going to take into account that he's beaten up Cassie. He has to. They do that in federal court. Even if you're found not guilty, you could look at your past and see the behavior that you've done as whether it's a mitigating or not a mitigating factor. So in this situation, the judge...
So the domestic violence may come back to actually haunt him in the form of a sentencing, exacerbating his sentence.
Maybe, but you know what I think?
As a character analysis that the judge looks at, like, this is not a good dude.
That's what's supposed to happen, but since this is
fair.
It's in the media right now. I'm predicting is going to go ask, Judge Kaplan, who's one of the older judges. Hey, Judge Kaplan, how much time do you think I should give? I don't want to. Remember, he doesn't want to go too much. He doesn't want to give too little. He wants public to think that the integrity is restored. What is that number? I believe. I think 3 to 5 years is that number.
Where is he getting sentenced? Is it federal district court in Los Angeles?
He's going to be sentenced in Manhattan on October 3rd. Is my understanding.
New York City.
Yes. So he'll get on count 3, count 5. Those are the engaging in prostitution. Yes, he got prostitutes to come over under the Mann Act.
What is the real charge? Is it essentially prostitution?
Bringing,
or is it
soliciting prostitution across interstate lines.
So there's the transportation element of that.
Yeah, all transportation means is you moved person A from person A to point
Let's
B.
tell people why it's important that it was across state lines, because otherwise this wouldn't even be a federal jurisdiction.
I believe that he he brought somebody in by airplane, right?
Why is it important? What if he just did it in the same county?
Well, that's not crossing interstate lines.
And why is that important?
Well, you want to get into the 10th Amendment about leaving the power of the states to handle their own crimes?
That's all. I just want people to understand that
Right.
once you cross state lines in any of these crimes, you subject yourself to federal level crimes.
Yes.
So your jurisdiction gets sort of elevated
increases.
to federal level.
There's a saying, you're making a federal case of this. There's a
Right.
reason why we're saying that.
Right.
Because it goes from like semi-serious to super duper serious.
Had he just stayed in New York City and solicited prostitutes from right there in the county, it would have been harder for federal authorities to have jurisdiction over that crime.
On the Mann Act, no, they wouldn't be able to charge on the Mann Act, but they still could come after him for racketeering and conspiracy and perhaps use that as a predicate crime.
They would have lost.
They would have lost. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm lawfaring you. I'm lawfaring. Do you see? I'm being very creative. I'm taking stuff and trying to convict you.
It's devious.
They shouldn't be doing that.
No, they shouldn't.
That's all I'm saying.
Nobody should.
And there's nothing more dangerous than a ambitious prosecutor. That's all I could say.
Could there be some kind of a check that our system needs to establish against overzealous prosecution? Like if there's frivolous prosecution, can we somehow go after the prosecutor?
That's what's happening now. They have special prosecutors.
Look, you're not a fan of lawfare. I'm not a fan of lawfare.
Right.
None of this is political. Lawfare needs to stop. When the Dems do it, it's wrong. When the Republicans do it, it's wrong. You cannot have politically influenced lawfare in this country.
Well,
it eviscerates the beauty of our system. We should stop it at its...
How about using lawfare for they used lawfare against Al Capone. They couldn't find anything.
Tax evasion?
Yeah, they couldn't find anything on. So they said they sifted through his taxes. I mean, that's going after him. That's legalizing and weaponizing.
Right,
if he was a regular Joe, they wouldn't just throw him in jail for
right.
taxes.
You're right.
They lawfared him.
They couldn't get him on any of the legitimate crimes.
Right. But the thing is, once we become like them, then we're losing our integrity.
Right.
Right. So, I don't believe in cutting corners just because you have a badge from the government to do so.
Right.
In fact, they should be held to a higher standard. And that's why when you're a federal officer, you could get into a lot of trouble when you commit crimes. Just like that. I'm not going to mention cases, but that's just the way it is.
Sure. But, okay, so there's some checks in the system in place to try to limit frivolous lawfare. And maybe we need more. I don't know.
We need more.
Yeah.
We need more because, especially for police brutality, in my opinion, there's just a prosecutor looking at the case. Well, you know what? I want to have somebody else look at it. Not just a young, ambitious prosecutor who graduated law school that sees it as a good case for it to bounce to a nice white shoe law firm. Because there's a lot of that going on. I could tell you that as a witness. I've seen it. I could drop names. The guy that the guy that prosecuted my clients, all right, 2 clients that were absolutely innocent, where they planted evidence against them and they beat him up. There's like 7 or 9 police officers that just did horrible things to him. After I presented everything on a silver platter as far as my client's innocent, he didn't care because he wanted to be a judge, which is a judge right now. Well, I've seen it, and I call it like I see it. This is just my opinion, right?
Yeah,
25 years of doing this. These charges were too much. They should, they could have gone after him for transportation to engage in prostitution and so forth. But I'll tell you what the politics is with it. It's very simple. The politics is Sean Combs is a bad person. He's a terrible person. I don't like him. Let me say, RJ Manwain doesn't like him. I hate him right now. I didn't like him before. I hate him right now. The reason why the prosecutors went after him is because he's a dislikable person. They want to backdoor that Intercontinental Hotel, the domestic violence and the coercion through that RICO predicate. It's a big umbrella, and that's why they went after him. Because all those statute of limitation crimes passed, and the federal government says, we're not going to let you get away with it. We're going to overcharge you, Mr. Combs, because you've been getting away with it for so many years. That's the reason why they went after him. That's called lawfare.
Yeah, and in this case, it seems like the correct result on a strictly legal analysis with no politics, no bias, no pop culture analysis, just strictly legally speaking, on those RICO charges, the correct result came out. On that transportation for sex or sex trafficking, correct result.
Absolutely.
And on the prostitution charge, seems like the correct result. He should be guilty of that.
It's 2 prostitutions, and the rest were not guilty. And, that was the correct result.
And I'm a little bit upset that we're not going to get this guy on domestic violence, on battering a woman on camera. But, who can we blame for that other than Cassie? She didn't bring those charges.
I'm not blaming her either. I'll tell you why, Tony, because there'll be psychologists and psychiatrists that will explain that even though she wasn't chained up and put inside her home, she was a 17, 18-year-old girl from nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's all she knew.
There was friction.
There was a somewhat hold that could only be explained by a psychologist or a psychiatrist, which I'm not, but I've reviewed their reports. They've testified for me and they've explained, RJ, it's not that simple. Sometimes people feel in domestic violence situations that there is no escape.
Right. And there was risk to her bringing any kind of. She had a lot to lose as well. She may have lost money, fame, opportunities as a musical artist if she had spoken up.
She would have lost everything, and then she would have been back home by herself with no financial opportunity, which is an argument that's being made that she brought the lawsuit because at the time she brought it, she wasn't really making a lot of money. And she may have looked back on it and said, you know what, that's not fair for you to do all this to me. I think I need to be compensated. Right. And perhaps she's right.
Which is understandable. Did she bring her civil suit, which is the first domino that fell in this entire thing? Right. Did she bring that after the tape aired? Maybe her hand was forced by that tape.
I don't recall the timeline.
I'm not sure either, but maybe somebody leaked that tape and that kind of forced her hand. Like, you got to speak up now.
Yeah.
Because the whole world sees you getting beat up on camera.
Right. And that was the worst thing that he did by speaking up because he admitted it and they're going to use that now for his sentencing on October 23rd.
Okay, let's talk about it.
And he was still, by the way, beating up people, according to Jane, as of the time of the arrest. That's going to be used in the sentencing.
What a dick.
He's not a nice person.
No. Let's talk about the sentencing now.
Yeah.
He's dodged the greatest bullets in terms of life in prison and,
20 plus years, yeah.
Multiple life sentences, who knows?
Right.
What do you think he'll get?
Again, if I was a judge, which I'm going to be training to be in the next couple of months, a traffic judge, but, there are rules that judges need to do. They need to be fair, but they also cannot undercompensate. So he will take into fact what's called a pre-sentencing investigative report by the federal probation department. They'll prepare something, recommendations and all of that. And his top term, I think, is 10 years. Are there federal sentencing guidelines that the judge has to abide by?
Yes.
Do we know what the range is for that?
0 to 10 is my understanding.
0 to 10 for that prostitution charge?
Yes.
It's 2 charges.
Yes, but he's not going to sentence him individually. What's called consecutive sentencing. He's going to give him time for both.
Got it.
So he'll probably get concurrent time running in sentence for those 2 lower charges, both of which are prostitution. Why is it 2 charges? There's 2 people involved?
2 people involved, right. So he'll get 0 to 10. I'm thinking 3 years to 5 years tops.
Okay, but then you got to subtract time served?
Yes, 85%.
You only get credit for 85% of time served?
You get 15% credit. You do 85% of your time typically. This may or may not qualify, though.
But what I'm saying is...
charges might be 100% on this one, but typically in federal court, it's 85%. This might be 100%.
But how much time has he already served waiting for this trial?
I think it's a year and 8 months so far.
So he won't get a full 20 months credit for that?
So let's just make a number up. If it's 24 months, he'll get 22 months credit.
Interesting. Yeah. Somebody was telling me.
But again, because of the nature of the charges, he may have to do 100%. I'd have to.
Do you ever get time and a half credit for time served?
State court is different. State court, you could do up to 50% of your time.
Is it ever more than 100%? Like they're like, hey, we held you all this time, and we're going to give you more than the time.
No, that's you max out.
Got it.
You max out.
As a maximum is 100% of your time served, more likely 85%.
But max might be life. So on the murder cases, just keep maxing you out.
So he's roughly been in prison 1.5 to 2 years. Let's take 85% of that. Let's just say a year.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Even more. Something like 14 to 16
So the judge
months.
is thinking about that, which is why he wasn't bailed. Everybody was asking, why wasn't he bailed out? Number one, I don't think the statute allows him to be bailed out based on the certain facts and circumstances, the nature of this charge. But another reason I think the judge wouldn't let him out regardless is because he's thinking, I got to give him something. So what's the point of me letting the guy out and then putting him back in? Because it's very difficult psychologically, I will tell you. And there's a huge risk of the person just saying, I ain't going to go back. I'm taking off. I'm going to Antigua. So for all the reasons above, I think he set it for October 3rd because he's saying, listen, you ain't going to go anywhere and I might give you a little time. So just chill out. I think that's what the judge is saying.
Meaning keep him in prison.
Right.
Pending sentencing.
And I think he'll get a little bit time. I'd be surprised
So
if
October
3rd if he lets him go.
So October, he shows up in front of the judge to hear his sentence.
Yeah.
Let's ballpark 7 years.
I don't think it'll go that high, but I'd be surprised if it
does. So your gut says closer to 5?
Yeah, I say closer to 5.
And then subtract a year and a half from that?
Yeah, or the judge may work the math out backwards. He might say to himself, I really wanted him to do 5, so I'll say 6.5.
So he nets somewhere around 3.5 to 5.
Right.
And then what happens?
He's released on probation.
When?
Upon his parole date, which will be approximately 80. Well, again, it might be
50%.
No. Federal court is always 85 and above. I don't have the calculation for
So you're doing 85% of your time.
For sure. He might
no
do
matter
all of it.
Good behavior, you get 8 degrees.
He may, depending on the charge and the statute, for engaging in prostitution, he may qualify. Most sex crimes you don't. But he might qualify for this. But aside from all that, the reason why he was back in court, by the way, the other day trying to get out earlier is because they got a bail package ready for him. Bail package meaning there's no reason for me to be here, Your Honor. You could send me home. I'll be under house arrest. I'm going to park my plane in Hawaii. You could have people come check on me every 15 minutes. I'll have no internet access whatsoever. I'll have no phone access other than talking to my attorney whatsoever. They put all that together, by the way.
Just to say, hey, here's an offer for the court. Let the guy out pending sentencing.
Right.
Maybe he wants to tie up some loose ends, see some friends, see some family before he goes back in.
But realistically, psychologically, it's torture. Because it's hard to do that, especially when you're released. You don't want to go back in. Are you kidding me? Once you're in there for a year and a half and you get to see the sun, you get to smell grass, you're not going to want to go back.
Not that type of grass.
No, not that fresh, earth grass.
Any kind of grass.
Right. So that's why the judge is considering that because frankly, it's cruel, especially if he knows it's going to give him extra time. Now, hypothetically, if he wasn't going to get any extra time, then that would have been a good move by Combs' attorneys to bring it earlier. Why? Because you could convince the judge we got a good bail company to monitor him, is not going anywhere. And then the judge is saying, yeah, no problem because I'm not going to give any extra time. But for the reasons that I stated, I think he will get a little extra time because the judge is making him sit there until October. Could I be wrong? Of course. Maybe he lets him out and says, enough is enough. But
so I'm doing back of the napkin math here in my head. It sounds like he won't get out till something like 2031.
I don't think that long. It's 2025.
It's 25. He's going to go in end of 25.
I don't think he'll get that long.
He's going to go in, let's say, beginning of 26.
It's so hard to, Tony, it's really hard to predict these things. I could be completely off. It could be a stunner where on October 3rd is released under strict terms and conditions, and maybe they send him to, alcoholic plan and all these.
Yeah, but he's still going back into federal prison.
Because remember, he has maybe not, on October 3rd, I'm saying, I might be shocked. The world might be shocked. I doubt it. There's if you were to ask me percentages, 10% chance he gets out on October 3rd. It's possible. But I think more likely is the median or the census point of view would be probably 3 to 5 years would be right.
3 to 5 years. So he goes in early 26. By 29 to 31, he probably gets out.
The reason I'm saying that is because he has no prior criminal history. But the curveball in this is a judge could consider non-convictable prior bad acts.
Like beating Cassie Ventura.
Beating Cassie Ventura, absolutely.
That's a bad one.
And they actually could confer or they could listen to the victims about their opinion as to how much time they should do, if they're forgiving, not forgiving, and so forth.
So would Cassie speak at the sentencing
hearing? I don't think she'll speak directly, if at all.
Through her lawyer?
Through her lawyer, yes. And I'm not sure her position at this point.
What kind of statement might she make? It could be benefiting him or hurting him, right?
It could be beneficial, saying that...
he's been through enough.
No, not that. That I firmly believe that all of his actions were done under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and that affected his ability to...
And I still love this guy still.
She won't say that.
She won't. She's in a new relationship and she has children. Right?
That'll be shocking for the husband, right?
Damn, that would
so that I think it'll be part of it. I don't think Jane is going to request more time because she apparently feels like she's still in love with Sean Combs, because even as recently as I think a few months, she texted him saying that she had feelings for him and that she liked him or loved him.
What about the two individuals involved in the prostitution charges?
I mean, are they really victims? They made money. They had a good time.
They just did a day of work.
I don't even think they're called. Are they victims? No, I don't think. I think it's a strict liability crime. So
are they liable for a crime?
They could be, but they're not going to go after them.
They're
Prostitution, engaging in prostitution.
Oldest career.
And technically,
oldest career in the books.
You want to use lawfare? I mean, I guess you could go after them from transportation to engage in prostitution, if I read the statute correctly, but they typically don't do that.
Would those two individuals be brought in to speak on the sentence?
No, they're not.
It's irrelevant.
They're not victims. Yeah. They're a element
of the crime
itself. Of the crime itself. Yeah. And they're using that to show that they're prostitutes and they engage in prostitution based on the direction and furtherance of Mr. Sean.
So here's a stupid question. Who's the victim in the prostitution charge?
In this prostitution?
Yeah.
It's just the act of itself that makes it a crime.
Who's
There's
the victim?
No victim. Well,
so it's a victimless crime?
Well, if you ask why is prostitution in general a crime, they'll tell you because of the spread of disease.
So it's general public policy.
It's a morality law. You know what I mean by morality
law?
Well,
I'd say public policy.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to stop bad acts like that
Correct.
affect society as a whole. You don't want to incentivize young ladies to become prostitutes.
An argument can be made. So yeah, absolutely.
Like even if they want to do it, you're like, hey, that may not be the best thing for you in your life. Here's a bunch of reasons why you think you want this, but you probably don't.
I mean, there are a lot of laws that they did based on that, including prohibition. You know, alcohol's not good for you, and then 2 years later, okay, we made a mistake.
100%. Criminalizing a lot of drug use. Some of it is victimless.
And a lot of countries don't have prostitution laws where you just have to register and you have to show medical records, and they argue it promotes a purpose. Some people are quadriplegic and can't have regular sex.
Like you see red light districts in different European countries.
That's right. So
that's kind of legal, right?
Right. And there are countries where legality is 18 or over to drink and drive. We're 21. We have probably one of the stricter morality laws, I would say, in the United States as opposed to the rest of Europe. And maybe even Russia. I think Russia could be 18 and over to drink.
It might relate to some of the stringent puritanical background of the original settlers, the original pilgrims and first wave of immigrants to this nation. There was a lot of Puritans involved.
I think that's part of it, but I think that they raised it from 18 to 21 because there was data showing that it was highly more likely to have a car accident at 18, and also because we have a higher population per capita than most other countries, and therefore a higher chance of these kinds of car accidents. I don't know how true that data is, but I think that's my understanding.
I still think we let people drive too young. I've got a 16-year-old right now. I have all the reason to say it.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, but then again, if you can make an argument that if they start younger, they'll be more prepared, right? As opposed to starting later. So,
all right. Anything else on this? I mean, we have a prediction on the table, 3 to 5 years sentencing. 2029, he may get out. 2030, he may get out. When do we find out the sentence?
Well, we're going to find out on October 3rd. By the way, I forgot to... Can I mention some things that we didn't mention before?
Yes, and then we should talk about our sponsor before we sign off.
All right. So I do need to mention these things because totally...
So key takeaways from the...
Key takeaways. We talk about any of this stuff.
Let's go.
First of all, he still may have a right to appeal these two issues.
So the charges of prostitution.
That's right. He has appellate options.
Right.
Okay.
Why wouldn't he use them?
He is doing so. He has an appellate team working on it now. All right. So he's attacking it. So even if he's hypothetically sentenced, they may put an order to stay the proceedings.
Got it.
And the appellate court may release him. And what would some of those arguments be?
Okay.
Well, if you recall, Combs' lawyer asked for a mistrial based on what they believe was a wrongly dismissed black juror who allegedly gave conflicting information about his residence, which is something really ticky-tacky or small. They could make an argument that it was improper and it affected the racial makeup of the jury. Okay, number one. Number two, they could also argue that the judge should have dismissed the racketeering charge before it went to trial because even though the jurors found Combs not guilty, the inclusion of the charge allowed the jury to hear substantial evidence involving sexual abuse, kidnapping, drugs, use, arson, and so forth. That could be part of his...
That's an interesting argument, and it's just on a human level. I feel like when you do put that more severe charge, does it increase the chances of a guilty on that lesser charge a little? Because the jury's like, okay, I got to give him something. I'm going to shy away from that crazy overreach of RICO, but all right, we'll get him on this. It's like you give a client 3 options and they usually choose the middle, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like a marketing tactic.
That's right. It's like, let's throw everything against the wall and let's see what sticks.
Right.
As I said before, the reason why they charge a RICO is because all the other statute of limitations had expired, and the other statute of limitations were the kidnapping and everything that you saw at the video at the Intercontinental Hotel. One of the jurors, a very important point, said, listen to what they said, quote, both women, I believe, were very credible, pointing to Ventura and pointing to Jane Doe. They wouldn't go up there and want to lie. I believe the women.
Yeah.
But they said, one of the jurors said, I think having a smoking gun for intent, that was one of the things we were looking for. And that was one of the alternate jurors.
This is on the second category.
Yeah, I was looking for something that would prove intent, and the defense did raise some doubt whether there was intent to coerce, end quote.
This is sex trafficking.
Right, by force, which is what I pretty much said before, right? Just want to point it out. The same person that saw the video said there was, quote, nothing in the video, end quote, that showed a bright line of coercion. And he said, even so, he believed the women's testimony about feeling coerced, but that it didn't meet that level of beyond a reasonable doubt. So, there was, I also made notes that I factored in that the partial acquittal verdict, which is what I call a split verdict, may have included prostitution errors like trumped up charges, missing witnesses, which they mentioned at the trial, and also to, just the fact that he was so smart, Mark Ignifico was so shrewd to own the domestic violence right away and take it out of the jury's minds. By doing that, you keep saying, by the way, if you want somebody to forget something bad happened, you keep mentioning that bad thing over and over like a hammer. At some point, they just soften up and they become resilient, and it's no longer a big deal. In my case, in that Los Angeles Dodger Stadium fight, the video was the worst thing in the world. The prosecutor said, good luck trying to win this thing, showing the jury, because it looked like a guy punching another guy on the ground. But I told the jury in the voir dire, which is a selection, you're going to see a really bad video. Really bad. And I kept saying it over. Are you going to be able to handle a bad video, number 4? Are you going to be able to handle it, number 1? Are you going to be able to handle it, number 7? It got tired of me saying the bad video. Where's the video?
By the time you show it.
By the time I show it, it was like, that's
not
the bad video?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see? So that's what Mark Ignifico did. He went in and
almost
said,
desensitized.
He desensitized and say he's a bad man. He's got a temper. We know that. He's not a good person.
Yeah.
He committed domestic violence. Yeah. He was wrong.
It's just not the charges brought.
Just overcharged him on these charges.
Yeah. You could have got him on domestic violence.
And the jury went back and they said, you're right. And so the system worked in that sense.
It's fascinating. Well, I guess we'll come back to it, right? Anything else to add?
Well, the verdict came...
We'll come back and talk about the sentence when we hear the sentence.
Yeah, well, the verdict came back pretty quickly, in my opinion. 13 hours of deliberation, which is just basically a day, 3 days, spread over 3 days. And I could see this in the movie. I don't know why. If you told me this happened, I'd say, get out of here. He goes back into jail. I picture him walking down with the guard, just walking him down, and everybody gets up and bravo, bravo. And that just looks like a movie to me. And I'm not trying to say it was the right thing to do, but the reason why they did it is, I understand the reasons, because nobody beats the federal government, and P. Diddy did.
Again, can we say a thank you to our first sponsor ever?
Yeah.
YMPK Law Firm.
YMPK, they're aggressive attorneys that bring excellent results. They've been around for many years. I know them personally. Give them a call, talk to them, tell them that American Crime Podcast sent you. They will not only take better care of you, they will immediately respond to you and talk about all your needs.
So if you do reach out to them and you have a legal matter you want YMPK to solve for you, they're good at doing that.
Car accidents, personal injury, slip and fall, anything, they will take care of you, and no recovery, no fee, and they get high rewards. So I'd highly recommend that you contact YMPK Law.
And let them know American Crime Podcast sent you. That's good for us. It's good for you. We want them to know that. What is their official tagline?
Aggressive attorneys that will maximize your recovery.
Aggressive attorneys maximizing recovery. That's pretty important if you're going to hire a lawyer, right?
Yeah, and
You want them to be aggressive.
Yeah, and they're there to help you navigate through all your legal issues from the beginning to the end. You don't have to worry when you hire them. They'll take care of everything for you.
Some lawyers are more aggressive than others, would you say?
Sure.
I mean, you've encountered a lot of lawyers in your time.
I have, and I know these guys. I know them personally, and I could say that I would recommend that you go to them. I would have my family go to them.
Got it. Now, again, we're going to put up a little disclaimer here because we're talking about a legal firm, and apparently there's laws that we can't really advocate for a lawyer. So we have to put up this disclaimer. Here we go, everybody. Look at this disclaimer. Read it. Pause it if you have to. We cannot really be telling you what law firm to choose. They're our first sponsor. We appreciate the heck out of these guys. And so we're going to do our best to get them a lot of business.
Thank you, YMPK Law.
Thank you, YMPK Law.